So today I think I'm going to just stay on horror possibly as well, except just what I watched last was disgusting. There's a sequel, but I'm going to take a break for now because it's just it's a bit can be a bit too much as I said yesterday. So I'm going to take a bit, not quite a very divergent break. So in that sense, not that random, but a break nonetheless. Yes, it's still similar genres, but at least it's not it's sequel. You know. Okay. This is a movie title with seemingly bad grammar. I don't know. Yeah. Because they use a singular noun here for something that seems okay, like something uncountable, which makes little sense. It's like saying, water is all around. The title is Ghost is all around. Um, so yeah, I mean, unless a ghost is water or something. It's a bit strange, isn't it? No, that's not the point of movies, is it? I mean, unless it's a drama about an English teacher, then I guess it's even more relevant, I suppose. You can very well criticize an English teacher for not being able to do the language that they're supposed to teach. Never mind, that's not the point, is it? I'm just saying. Yeah, ghost is all around. Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be more appropriate to say ghosts are all around. But maybe, I don't know, ghost is all around. I it's strange, isn't it? In a way, it's still correct, but not quite. Like, the ghost can still be all around, but, usually ghosts are sort of individual units as well, unless we're redefining the definition, I suppose. Suddenly it's ghosts all over, but that's the point. If it was ghosts all over, then it would be plural. Anyway, I'm just here's my pedantry coming out. Um. Anyway, let's just begin this. Hopefully, it won't be as disgusting as Corpse Party. That thing was unbelievable. Like, it made one Miss Call look tame in comparison. And by the way, the this I don't I'm not often impressed by logos, but M39, whatever that is, has a really cool one. Begins from a video camera and goes to loads of places that look like chips, which then ends up in its logos. It's good from there, yeah, and it's quite interesting. I like when they're creative. Goes from color to more black and white. Yeah. Alright, so this is a Thai film. The wondering why it sort of looks like a Korean script, but not quite. I'm not very. I mean, I can differentiate between Korean script and Japanese and maybe Chinese as well, but not quite beyond that. Yeah, I also haven't heard of any of these celebrations that they're mentioning, so this is all new to me. But it's fair. Movies can be an introduction to things, right? And you can always research them after. But seriously, here I was just hoping, thinking that after yesterday it couldn't possibly get worse. And within the space of a few seconds, you get a mixture of apparently blood uh, uh, some sort of powder somehow. I I don't think I've ever seen that combination before. I mean, if you have blood all over, surely you have no mindset to do anything. And then somehow he even vomited. At least so far, no guts though. Just blood, you know. It's just, I cannot believe they made some sort of museum of guts in corpse body. It's unbelievable. It's like, you know, I yeah, I think I remember that from the anime as well. And it's anyway, this is quite fast as well. I mean, I'm only on the 7th minute, yeah, nearly eighth, and someone already died loads of times. Probably due to his hallucination. He's likely hallucinating it. Well, she might have died once, I suppose, and then he's hallucinating it multiple times. Or not died at all. I mean, I'm not sure how he even went from disco to this place. I thought it might she might have been a different person. Either that, or he's going out with multiple people and they're all killing themselves. I don't know. It's quite a screwed up situation that one can get oneself in under 8 minutes. It's quite something. Yeah. And what do you know after watching Keeping Rosie a few days ago? I ended up in a similar sort of scene in a Thai movie. They both have someone on the ground in a car park dragging something with them. In Keeping Rosie, it was a sleeping bag. Here, it was some other sort of bag that obviously had something heavy in it, presumably a body. Although in this movie, we didn't see him putting anything in. Yes, what's the likelihood of that, huh? Watching two movies soon after, not straight after, but from different countries as well. Does this happen often? I wonder if there was a survey that they find out that this happened in every, like, one in every 10 thrillers or such. I don't know. Strange. In Keeping Rosie, of course, there weren't any auditory hallucinations, shall we say. Yeah, I'm just realizing that Thai actually sounds a lot like Chinese. So it has these Tara sort of, words that seem to slide off or something. Except Chinese seems to have shorter syllables as well. I don't know, I'm just openly wondering about this. But, I'm not sure why he's even doing this. Like, if somebody decides to commit suicide, well, they did that, I mean, it's not like, I mean, sure, they were in a relationship and, uh, but, it's not the same as murder or anything. It's their own decision. Yeah, I'm not sure why he's trying to, yeah, that's, I suppose, sort of like, dumping in a relationship, in this sense now, dumping the body. So I might as well have just continued on to the Corpse Party sequel. I mean, this is practically, it's very similar. I don't know, just, I cannot believe we're only just 12 minutes in and he's already vomited twice. Seriously, at this rate, wow. The more characters vomit in movies, the less. I mean, I don't think there's a single instance where someone vomiting unless say it's seriously in response to something else that's even more disgusting, I suppose. One might say, you know, vomiting in itself is disgusting. So just it's in a movie, it ruins most of the movie, and if it's done more than once, wow, it's seriously annoying, isn't it? I don't know why they resort to it. What's the point? Just did you make the audience feel disgusted? What's the point? Well, most of this is relentless and over the top, but her swinging on a tube of lighting is quite, I suppose, in a way, a bit funny as well. But just I don't think I've ever seen anyone swinging on top like that in any other context. Well, I think this is segmented, right? From what I can understand, there's different people now. The first one was relentless, but it ended actually not too badly. The concept was interesting at the end, at least. Um, yeah, and otherwise it was still very, whereas most sort of these uh, most movies that have this sort of ghostly girl and such in them, usually only you know I've never seen another where she's pursuing relentlessly and such. Usually, every so often, this was quite relentless. But the ending was quite interesting, I suppose one could say. I do like twists, when they're not corny and such. This wasn't really so much. The shout at the end was quite effective. It was, sort of a shout from the soul in a way, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's reminded me a bit of Max Payne because that's also set in a hospital. At least the second one is. I think that begins in a hospital. So yeah, sort of reminiscent of that, and there were similar elements as well in terms of apparitions and such. Yeah. And yeah, the second segment is more different. There are elements of similar sort of ghostly presences, but there's much more comedy in the first one. The first one practically had no comedy. This one had a bit, at least it has up until the 27 minutes, and then there's an attempt at romance as well, on in a darkened environment. I don't know what to think of this. The only reference to anything to do with, I guess, is sort of like a horror trope is the headless thing in headless shadow is, which is much less obviously than there were before the previous segment. In a way, it's interesting. Really. They make quite contrast, and yeah, the second one is definitely my favorite so far. It was quite strange, but still interesting. Yeah, comedy combined with horror can be quite effective. I mean, it took comedy a bit far as well. So it wasn't just subtle comedy; it was more similar to slapstick. And when you combine that with topics such as car crashes and such, also note how the two intertwine. The one from before. So whoever made this movie, so it can, I guess, diverge quite a bit as well. They both had this ghostly sort of fundament, but the second one could really do comedy. I mean, not all of it is laugh out loud and such, um, but it's still quite comedic. The fact that they convinced him to become a priest and then it was all for nothing, and you know, it was interesting as much as could be, really. So now I don't know whether the third one, presumably the last, is going to be either comic or just horrific. Presumably it will have elements of horror, since both of those had no idea whether it's comedy or some of the genre they're going to go in. And this movie turned out to be more interesting than I thought it could be anyway, with just the first one. And yeah, the third one is what they'd call Facebook humor, which isn't, very funny, but whatever, I guess. I got a bit confused because at one point I thought that they were going to crash or something because they were on that road and they didn't. So I'm not sure if the timeline diverged or something. Alright, so I finished the third one as well, and yeah, it was interesting. I wasn't quite prepared for the comedy, but it was still interesting. As I say, it wasn't absolutely laugh out loud comedy, but the third one wasn't so strong on the comedy, but then it tried to be sentimental at the end as well, which at first I thought it was corny maybe, but it sort of worked in the end, and then there was just a slight bit of comedy once again. It's mostly the second one that was comedic though. That sort of had the right amount of slapstick, whereas the third one was sort of unnecessarily comedic. But then it still redeemed itself. The discussion about what the statues and such was sort of interesting, I suppose. It was interesting how they involved Buddhism generally, which is obviously a Thai religion, into the whole storyline bit by bit. But yeah, it's all three were interesting in a way. The third one was the most brutal. The first one of this was the most brutal, but otherwise, it was still they still all had something that yeah. Then at the end they all combined. So this is supposed to show a day where all three shared this thing, and it wasn't yeah as beginning I thought it was just going to be some core fest, but it went beyond that and had some interesting ideas as well in terms of the makeup wasn't incredibly impressive though, but I suppose I don't know. They tried to display, I guess, veins of rotted things and such, but yeah, I don't know. But makeup is always hit or miss, I suppose, and mostly miss. I mean, when it comes to zombies and such, they're made to look ugly anyway. It's not like it's any other way. I mean, they're not exactly going in for a beauty contest, I guess. But yeah, it was still, let's just say, after Cope's party, this was a breath of fresh air, really. At first, I thought, with the first one, it was going to be a repeat, but when it comes to sort of an anthology sort of movie like this, where even if you get a brutal, first third in this instance, first 30 minutes or so, yeah, the other two weren't the same at all. Nobody else vomited and such, so that's good. So in a way, it sort of redeemed itself. It's the latter two, continued on with the first one, it would have been too much, but the other two were interesting and funny. Mostly the second one. The third one was its own thing, I guess. Yeah, it's still a bit creepy and such, but mostly funny. Yeah, it uh, I certainly liked it more. Not as much as Deathstock or such. Deathstock was sort of better structured and such, but this was still as a movie, it still worked. Yeah, it's